Okay, so here we are on our second class of Christian Mysticism, and I'm going over the information from the introduction of Jason Baxter's book. So now we're looking at nirvana or non-duality. Let me see if I can open my PowerPoint on this one. I'm not that technically proficient, so it's kind of ridiculous that I have to use two laptops and a desktop to do my stuff. But what are you going to... Okay, no, that might work. So we're talking about Christian mysticism. What is it? We talked a little bit about that on Wednesday. So do any of you remember what we said mysticism is and what Christian mysticism is? This is a good way of me knowing it if you're listening. What's mysticism? Or you can say it in your own words. Okay, let me get prime the pump. So basically, it's seeking a direct personal experience with the transcendent, which is God. If you're a Christian, it's Allah. If you're Muslim, as you are, Adrian, it's the universe. If you're kind of secular, if you're a Buddhist, it might be with non-duality or nirvana. You need to be absorbed into the universe. If you're a Hindu, it could be Brahma. But you're basically seeking not just to read the scriptures or engage in the rituals of your religion. Every religion has rituals. Every religion has, even Pentecostals or Baptists have rituals that, 3 songs and then the offering and then another prayerful song and then the preaching. So every religion has rituals. Every religion has scripture. And one way to approach God is through those rituals and those scriptures and faithful participation in them. But another way, which is not contradictory, you could do both and, is to seek through meditation, through silence, through service, through spiritual disciplines, fasting, poverty, is to seek a direct revelation of God. Hello, how are you, Nadine? Very good. Good to see you. And in Eastern religions, the goal tends to be nirvana or non-duality, which I already mentioned. That's where the drop of water comes down on the mountain, gets in the rivulet, a stream, a creek, runs downhill into the river and eventually into the ocean, and it doesn't cease to exist. It simply becomes the ocean. That's kind of the Eastern approach. In Abrahamic religions, there's a stronger emphasis on individuality, and so the goal is to experience God, but not to lose your individuality, to find union with God and to find the love of God and a vision of God without ceasing to be who you are. And so here's a picture. This picture is taken from Dante Alighieri's medieval book called The Divine Comedy. It's on my list of books that I want to read before I die. I have not read it yet. I'm going to be honest with you. But it's a Western classic, The Divine Comedy, and Dante goes on a journey, and he goes to purgatory, and he goes to hell. I think there's 7 levels of hell, and then he goes up an ascent. This is going to be a common theme throughout all of our discussion of mysticism, is this idea of a journey upwards, climbing up a mountain, and a divine ascent to God, revelation, enlightenment. Plato's cave is an ascent out of the darkness of a cave. And so this is the picture. This is an artist's rendering of the moment when he and his guide, who's Beatrice, have a vision of the divine. As you can see there's circles and circles of angels around a light emanating from the center. That's just one way that Dante describes something through the imagination and an artist took his description in his poem and turned it into a visual rendering. So what would God look like if we could see him? Well, if you ask Moses, Moses did see God from behind, and he said God looks like mercy and compassion and justice. And he came down off the mountain and he was completely white. It's taken me about 10 years to go white. But Dante turned white just at that awesome vision of God. So that's a little bit more about the Divine Comedy. This will be posted. I haven't done it yet, but I'll post the PowerPoint in the module, week 1 module, so that you can read it. If you don't have your book yet, you can read the module, the PowerPoint. So read the article on the age of mysticism in a nuclear age by Thomas Merton. Here's another picture, artist rendering from a different angle of Dante's vision of God with Beatrice's guide. So one of the things about mysticism is that it's seeking to understand that which cannot be understood. If you ever read Rumi, the Sufi poet, you'll see a lot of paradoxes in mysticism in any religion. So you want to understand God, but God cannot be understood. You want to experience God's being, but he's not a being. He is the one who is uncreated. I think Islam gets some of this right, by exalting the transcendence of God. In Christianity, we also celebrate the immanence of God. You know what immanence means? That he's here with us, Christ with Emmanuel, God with us. Transcendence means the sovereignty, the awesome incomprehensibility, ineffability of can't say being. A being is a created being, and God is uncreated. So this starts to get at this idea in mysticism that God is beyond our understanding, and yet we seek to understand. One definition of theology is faith-seeking understanding. So God can't be seen, and yet we seek to see him. Our minds cannot contain the awesomeness and infinitude of God. And therefore, mysticism is a journey to try to understand and participate in God, even though we really can't. All right. This is messing me up here. Nope, that didn't work. So God beyond being. The idea of mysticism makes some people nervous because they associate it with Eastern religions or the New Age movement. So this author teaches in a Christian school, and he's in the first introduction, he's talking about how when he talks about mysticism, it makes the Christians in the room a little uneasy because they've never heard that word in the context of their Christianity. They've heard it in terms of the New Age movement or Eastern religions, and so mysticism is suspect for many Christians. You had that reaction with your dad when he saw your book. However, it wasn't like that always. In the first 1,000 years, when you said mysticism, you're talking about a disciplined approach to seeking to experience God. And it was understood that theology was mystical theology. It's only in the modern world where the mystical has been divided away from the theological, partly because we tend more towards rationality. We want to dissect and understand. And as I said on Wednesday, the Greek Orthodox Church, or the Russian Orthodox, leave a lot more room for mysticism and their approach to theology. Catholicism leaves some room as well for mystery. Protestantism, it depends. Perhaps in Pentecostalism, yes, but other branches of Protestantism, not so much. So mystery simply means there's stuff we don't know. I'm a Christian, I read the Bible, but if you ask me, if you pin me to the wall, there's stuff, if I'm going to be honest, there's stuff I don't know. Why did God do this in the Old Testament? Well, I don't know. Why? What about this? Well, I don't know. Where do people go when they die? Well, there's some hints and suggestions and metaphors and parables in the Bible, but I don't totally exactly know. I do know that the resurrection for Christianity is considered to be the great hope, and it's a matter of faith. But it doesn't spell out in detail what happens when we die. So that's mystery. And I find it a great comfort. Instead of having to be absolutely certain about everything and defend it to the death, I find it a great comfort to be able to say, I don't know for sure. And so historic Christian mysticism was seen as the lifeblood of prayer and adoration of God in the soul, and traditional Christianity. This is why for those of us who are Protestants, it's good to get some history and go back beyond 1500 to find out Christianity had already been around for 1500 years, and there's some good stuff in there. It didn't all die and then start all over with Martin Luther. And I say that as a Protestant. So mystical theology owes some of a debt to Platonism. Can anyone tell me what Platonism is? If you've taken any philosophy classes, you would know this probably. But if you're a computer engineer major, maybe not. What's Plato? Who's Plato?
Plato was a Greek philosopher, right?
He was a philosopher. He was Greek in Athens.
Platonism is such a broad term.
Yeah.
I know the major point is the theory of forms.
Yes, very good.
Right? So it's the appearance, but then there's something behind the appearance, which is what Plato's trying to get at.
Yeah, Plato believed that we have maybe 35 chairs in this room, but he believed there's a concept or an idea of chairness as an abstract that was in another realm of forms. The realm of forms in the realm of specific individual instances of that generalized concept. But the interesting thing was, as you'll find out in chapter 2, I think, is that while the Jews, or I shouldn't say Jews because that's not till much later, but the Hebrews, while the Hebrews were having major cataclysmic encounters with God, like on the mountain of Sinai, there was lightning, there was thunder, God came down like a cloud and talked to Moses and gave him the 12 commandments. The Greeks were much more boring. They didn't have anything like that, but they were asking questions. And Socrates is the prime example of the Socratic method of, well, what about this? Or what about this? So Plato came up with this theory of forms, his metaphor of the cave. And what happened is Hebrew faith in Christ and Jesus of Nazareth came together with Greek philosophy. The Hebrew portion, Hebrew followers of Jesus of Nazareth, began to look for vocabulary to express what they experienced in a Greco-Roman culture, and to some degree, Stoicism and Platonism provided the terminology. So you see that in the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. But the Greek is, in the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos was with God. And so Plato and later on what's called Neoplatonism, represented by a guy named Plotinus, developed a lot of categories and terminology that's useful for mysticism. And we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about some of the differences between the Platonic approach to mysticism and a Christian approach to mysticism, which becomes really clear with Saint Augustine. I'm going to give up and call him Saint Augustine because I keep calling him Saint Augustine based on the way it's spelled, but all my friends call him Augustine. So, okay, we'll go with Augustine. Here's another interesting picture. You see Christ here. And this is when he appeared on the mountain to be transfigured. But I'm not. It looks like there's more than 3 people there around him. Oh yeah, there's Moses and Elijah who appeared to Christ on the mountain of transfiguration, and the 3 at the bottom are the disciples, Peter, James, and John, that he took with him. So that's another example of what we would call a mystical experience. They go up. He said, "Hey, you guys, you stay here. You 3 come with me." He was up on the mountain, and there's a white light comes down over him, and and Moses and Elijah appear to him to talk about his coming trial of the crucifixion, and the 3 apostles, Peter, James, and John, fall down at his feet and are overwhelmed with this vision of glory. And after it's over, he tells them, "Don't tell anybody." I had an experience. I'm not going to compare it to this, but I had an experience once, which is actually the moment I really permanently became a Christian. I was on and off again for a little while in my teenage years, but I had gone to a baby shower with my wife about a year after we were married. She stayed at the baby shower, and I went with the groom who was getting married to my wife's friend and another guy. We went to a pizza shop, and I've been kind of faking trying to be a Christian because I wanted my wife to marry me. She was not going to marry anybody who was not a Christian, so I faked it. Fake it till you make it. And so we arrived at this pizza shop, and the owner or the manager that was there that night was also someone of faith. So he joined us at the table, and they started talking about the love of God. Now, they all assumed that I was a believer, but I knew in my heart I was not. And they were talking about God's love, and I remember sensing, I'm not going to say I saw it, but with my inner sense, my imagination, but it was very real. It's not something I conjured up. I sensed a white light come down over the table and rest around our table, which I associate with the idea of God's love. And in that white light, there was only one black spot. And guess who it was? It was me. And I felt like a black spot in the middle of this beautiful white light. And as a result of that experience, I believed. I truly, sincerely believed in the existence of God. And I went out that night and got in my car, and I felt transformed. So that would be kind of a mystical experience. I told you I lean towards mysticism, even though I don't vigorously apply the disciplines necessary to be a mystic. I'm a little lazy. But I have had a few revelations, and they're in the realm of imagination, like poetry or art or music. You feel something, and you don't actually see it, but you kind of see it in your imagination. That's what that kind is. Now, there's other things, like other people have had divine visitations where they actually see someone. An angel visits them. I've been told that. I don't know. I've never experienced it. So we're going to stop there because you need to go pray, and you probably need to go study. And what do you need to do, Moises? Go hang out, read. What do you need to do, Nadine? What's that? Okay, and I need to go to another class. And after that, I'm going to go home and have a cigar and work on my classes. That's why I'm not a mystic. I'm inclined to be mystical, but I'm not a mystic because I'm a little too self-indulgent. I'm a Taurus. Tauruses are sensual. I like that cigar. All right, thank you so much. I will post the PowerPoint in week 1 for you to refer to. It is from the book, so if you don't have the book, the PowerPoint, there's probably nothing in the quiz that's not on the PowerPoint. So it might be a fast way to get the information you need for the quiz. All right, take care. Have a good weekend. See you soon.